And welcome back, everybody. Hands on apologetics, and we're going to talk about the Great Commission and carrying that out. And to do that, we have our good friend Brian Topham with us. Brian, as you know, runs a fantastic YouTube channel called Quest for Faith with Brian. And I have to say, Brian, top-notch work you're doing on the channel. Except you did have this joker named Machuda on that I think really hurt your reputation. So outside of that, I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I really did appreciate you coming on and really talking about my favorite subject, which is the Bible and the history behind that. So it was fun.
Yeah, it was, especially talking about the canon and stuff like that, which that played, I think it played a role in your own conversion, didn't it?
Yeah, it was a big role in my conversion. That was really kind of the first pin to fall, so to speak, that started me towards the Catholic Church, was realizing what I'd been taught as a Protestant was an actual truth. And that learning that I didn't agree with Martin Luther at all on why he wanted to create the Apocrypha was even more disturbing. So it was not a fun experience for a while there until I accepted it.
Yeah, let's talk about today's subject. I wasn't sure what to put for the show title, so I just said basically following the Great Commission. I don't know if
I think that's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so this idea started germinating over Christmas break. And by the way, I'm halfway through your book, and this also added to this thought process. So I really am. My wife got it for me for Christmas, and so I've been reading that. And
well, thank your wife for me.
I will.
Awesome.
I will for sure. And I was just I've been reading your book. I was listening actually to Bishop Barron's interview with how did I just forget his name all of a sudden? The guy from Canada. Why am I forgetting his name? Anyways, he was doing an interview, and the question towards the end was brought up about why the Catholic Church's numbers are dwindling. And I thought it was a really interesting topic that they brought up, and it was this idea of a call to adventure, and this idea that we are called to an adventure in the Great Commission, right? That's the call for us. And we should look at it like an adventure, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. But this idea that humans respond to being challenged. And I think where from, granted, I'm a new Catholic, but everything that I've been looking at and reading and listening to post Vatican II, I don't necessarily think Vatican II is the issue. I think it's the implementation afterwards, but it's like we made it soft, right? We've taken away the challenge, the adventure, and we're trying to kind of pull away from that standard of living that was really hardlined, right? And I think all these thoughts were kind of pulling through my head, and then it just is something that I think as Catholics we are called for this adventure. We are called to preach the gospel to all nations, and I think it's something that I don't know if we think about enough consciously as a Catholic Church.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, especially in the laity. There's a kind of clericalism that, preaching the gospel and, that type of adventure is only for the clerics, the priests, the bishops. For as our laity, we should just frequent the sacraments and, do a lot of praying. And it's like, no, the Catholic life, it truly is an adventure, because you're called to go out there and spread the gospel to the world. It's not just the priest's job. It's not just missionaries' job. It's our job.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's also this disconnect with I feel like and I heard a priest say this, and it drove me nuts. And he was talking about when he interacts with other faiths, he doesn't really want to try and convert them at the time. And I'm just like, no, like you should be leaving breadcrumbs to lead them to the Catholic Church the whole time. But side note on that, but there's this idea that I think people are kind of downplaying this idea that in Vatican II, they spell it out pretty clearly that there is a possibility of salvation outside of the Catholic Church. And we know God is a just God and he's going to judge all souls justly, right? And that's that premise behind that. But the best way, the optimal way for salvation is through the Catholic Church and through the sacraments. And knowing that as a new Catholic and learning this and seeing how other Catholics are interacting with the world, it just kind of makes me want to scream from the rooftops going, y'all, come on. This is good news. We need to share this with everybody, even if they don't agree with us.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think there's a bad misinterpretation where it's like, well, you know, if salvation is possible outside the visible confines of the church, then, you know, we don't need to evangelize. They're good. We're good. You know, let's just get along and hold hands and sing Kumbaya together, you know, and that's terrible because it's kind of like Steve Ray has an analogy where it's like the church is the ark. You know, the Ark of Peter, and Protestants are like people are in life rafts or clinging on to timber.
The boat analogy.
Yeah. And it's like, it's as if people in the boat say, they're fine. You know, they got flotation devices. They could probably make it to shore. It's like, you wouldn't do that. You would say, get them on the boat, you know, right. It's safe.
And it even goes to that misconception when you read about, there's bits of truth. God is in everything, right? And God's in other faiths. And what that is technically saying is we know God is everywhere. And man, as a religious human a species, is trying to find God in their own way. So when you look at other faiths, they might have some things that are right, but that's what they're trying to do is find God. And we have found him in the Catholic Church. And so, hey, let's reach a hand out to the Hindus or to the Buddhists or to the Muslims or to our Protestant brothers and sisters and say, guys, I know what you're looking for. We found it. This is it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's, and you would expect that, right? Because if there wasn't glimmers of grace and truth, you know, in these other religions, it would be impossible to evangelize them because we wouldn't have anything in common, you know, that we could use. But you're right. It's like little glimmers and we have the fullness. And, you know, Fulton Sheen also, I guess I'm throwing out a bunch of analogies today, but they're good ones. Like Fulton Sheen says, you know, it's like, evangelism is just basically telling starving people where they can find bread, you know, because we're at a banquet. There's people out there that might have morsels of food. Why not invite them to the fullness of the banquet, you know?
Exactly. And I think, again, to this great adventure topic, and it was Jordan Peterson interview with Bishop Barron. I don't know why I couldn't think of Jordan Peterson's name. But anyways, it's Friday. It's been a long week.
Yeah, that's right.
But I think we need to make sure we're evangelizing and going through the Great Commission, but we're also holding each other accountable to our faith, and that we are setting these high standards for ourselves. And not to say that we're going to downcast or talk bad to each other. Not that. But what I'm saying is there's a standard that Christ has shown us. And we need to try and live up to that standard when we know we're not going to. Mm-hmm. But that's actually how Christianity spread in the first century, right? Like, yeah, the apostles kicked it off, but then the converts started acting a different way and people were interested in how they were acting. And they're like, wow, that's a different standard of living. that seems challenging. You really don't want to have sex before marriage. You really are being courteous and kind to these evil people. You're turning the other cheek. Like that's different. What's wrong with you guys? And that's what really spread the faith, was the way that early Christians were acting compared to the rest of the world. And we're in a pagan society today, plain and simple. So let's do that again. It worked. It worked. Let's do it again.
Yeah, we got to stand out and not blend in. And man, that's one of the most disheartening thing about statistics is that many Catholics in the pew live their lifestyle not very much different than, like you said, they're surrounding pagans. They engage in the same sinful activity, and what I mean? They lost that distinctive Catholicity. That they're Christians and followers of Christ.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the sad state of affairs we're in, but we can change it and turn it around. Like I have complete faith in Christ and the Catholic Church and us lay people to be able to do this. There's some times in history where we have great saints and bishops and leaders in the church that drive us in the right direction. There's other times there's not. And that's when we as lay people, we're not just here to receive the sacraments and go to mass every Sunday. It's more than that.
Yeah. It's not just merely the salvation of my own soul, but it's the salvation of others as well. No one goes to heaven alone. You always bring other people with you because we're the body of Christ. We're not just solitary loners. Yep. And I think, that kind of sacramental attitude where it's like, I go to mass every Sunday, I go to confession every now and then, I'm good. There's more to being Catholic than just frequenting the sacraments. Although it's awesome. All right. Exactly. I hear the music coming up, Brian. We'll hit pause right there. We are chatting with Brian Topham of Quest for Faith with Brian on YouTube. More to come right after this.